I asked you, how can we best absorb what is in materials and experiences rather than having them go in one ear and out the other? You gave an answer to that, and I was hoping you could explain the answer a little further if you see fit.
Okay. Is there a passage though? Remember, there was a passage as you're gonna, or we can skip that and move on to this. So read my response, please. I don't recall it.
Here's the response. For core materials, it's simple. Read until understanding, wait, repeat. Integrate with level of understanding, wait, repeat from different angles. Experience, for experience, contemplation, integration with discursive understanding, integration with non-discursive understanding. Now it's knowledge.
Yeah,
so
that's not too bad.
So let's take the first one for materials.
Materials, you mean books.
Books. For core materials.
Or recordings or some stuff like that. Right. Okay.
For core materials, it's simple. Read until understanding, wait, repeat. Integrate with level of understanding, wait, repeat from different angles.
So here, the simplest example would be the Sufi texts, right? Mm-hmm. They're really quite exquisite. So you read a book, and you're not going to understand half of it the first time you read it. So you do your best to understand what you can. And some people have suggested that you cross out, everything you understand and that you like. And then you wait a while and you read the book again. And you can't read the same book twice because you're not the same man, right?
Right.
You've changed. So now you read it again and you check for understanding. If you don't understand something, you ask questions. And first you spend time contemplating it yourself, right?
Right.
Okay, so go on. What's the first part?
So, okay, read until understanding. Wait, repeat.
More or less, yeah.
Okay, then integrate with level of understanding.
Yeah, because so let's take a phrase. You could almost take a random phrase. One's not coming to mind, but there's different levels at which to understand things, right? When Jesus says, for example, that you must become like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's a pretty profound and extraordinarily succinct statement, right? So you kind of quasi understand it. You think, well, you need to be innocent. You must be free from sin. You can't have a bunch of guile. Right?
Yeah.
And then the next time you read it, you think, well, that's interesting. I wonder if that but I think I understand it. And that's the best you could do at your developmental level, right? Later, it's going to mean something different. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Well, you could give me a Sufi passage, and I could do it also for illustration.
Yeah, here's a Sufi passage. I'll do a Sufi passage. We can do one that I haven't crossed off yet. How about this? This is a relatively short one. This is a question and answer from Idris Shah's The Commanding Self, entitled Major and Minor Actions.
Well, question and answer is going to be different because there he's dealing with particular students, at a particular time and a particular, level of development. So better to pick something else.
Okay.
Probably.
Let me find. Okay. This is actually a good one, maybe. This is literally about what we're talking about, called Undigested. It is extremely important to absorb what one is taught, not just to taste it or swallow it. People generally are in such a hurry that they do not allow themselves to digest materials which, however, can be useful only if absorbed. There is a parable about this, which helps to fix it in the memory. It is the story of the pieces of gold. There was once a greedy miser who went to a king regularly and begged from him. Each time he went to the king, he came away with a piece of gold, which he had grabbed from the monarch's hand and stuffed into the recesses of his cloak. As soon as he got home, he would drop the coin into a hole under the hearth. One day the miser died, as we all must die. When his money was found, it was noticed that on each coin was the name of the king, and all the treasure was returned to him.
Okay. Do you see how? So you can understand that at several different levels, right?
Right. I have. So I didn't cross this off when I first read this book because
don't cross it off too quickly because it's very deep.
I still haven't crossed it off. So
right.
This is on my second time reading through. A new level, we could say, unfolded to me. And so then I thought,
why don't you explain that for the benefit of other people?
Okay. So the first time, it's hard to quite remember exactly what I thought the first time, but the first time reading this, it's actually funny. I pretty much just went straight through that statement. Idris Shah says, people generally are in such a hurry that they do not allow themselves to digest materials, which, however, can be useful only if absorbed. I read that, thought I understood it, but my posture towards the Shah materials at the time was that there were so much of them, or so many of them, and so dense. And I was a bit greedy to move along the way and learn more, know more.
Yeah, that's very common.
And so I was like ripping through at a quite fast pace these books. And I didn't even realize that I was doing the exact thing that he was admonishing people not to do. So I had missed that and thought I understood the passage. And basically, I think I understood this pieces of gold passage as maybe greed will prevent the accumulation and then the actual activation of knowledge, something like that.
Okay, that's not uncommon.
When I read through it a second time, and I realized that I need to take this more seriously and actually dive into the stuff. I read that word again, or this sentence from Idris Shah again, realized I was doing that exact thing, and then saw that I was like this greedy miser. Whereas before I didn't really identify myself with the greedy miser. Now I thought, okay, each piece of gold is like me trying to take one of Idris Shah's books, or a Sufi book, or a Taoist book, or a passage from the Tao Te Ching, for example, read it through and think, okay, I got it. And I'm just storing them up. And I'm not spending them on anything. I'm not activating the gold. So I thought of the symbolism of the gold. A piece of gold is really just a rock until you actually activate its, understand its value and can use its value, activate what's inside of it. So I was just collecting rocks, and that's what this person is doing, collecting inanimate objects that don't do anything, which then eventually just go back to their source because they weren't activated for any purpose. So that was beyond what originally I thought was something, I forget what I said, greed, whatever it was, greed will get in the way of actual learning. And those two things are related, but they're two different levels, or perhaps two different interpretations. But I still haven't crossed off this thing because the interesting thing about this is I don't even exactly know when or when not I can cross off something, because it feels like.
Good. Well, that's learning. Okay, so you've gotten the most basic. You haven't gotten to the richer meanings yet.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, so now what was my answer was something like, read it till you understand it, at least once,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back to it, read it again. I should have said, read it again and read it again. And these things are, these, it's very hard to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it, but there's more meanings there, far more. And you can't get them in a rush, most certainly, and you can't get them on the first pass or necessarily the second pass, but at least on the second pass you can keep going. All right?
Right.
Are you following? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I was confused when you said integrate with level of understanding. That statement.
Right, exactly. Integrate with your level of understanding. So now it's about greed and misers, right? Later it'll be about why the king's name on the coin, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is what they mean by it. It takes patience, right? You got to be patient.
Yeah,
and this is one of the reasons we exclude too much material, and only that which is very, very going to be very, very immediately useful, because we don't want people just reading garbage in, garbage out, right?
Right.
Or scattered things. There's a student who's all caught up in Rupert Spira, be aware of awareness, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the that's not the thing, that's not the thing right now, and that's developmentally inappropriate. And so what happens, unfortunately, Tolle's less bad about this, but Spira just the Hindu guys just kind of go out there and just lay it out, the whole answer, to people who have no idea what that actually points to. They just go around, blabbering, I am. I saw a woman in Northern California, and they're wearing literally T-shirts that say, I am. It's like nutso. It's like, that's not helping anybody, especially someone with a character disorder. And so the serious student, the serious teacher, is going to take his students seriously and not just, make them feel better for a weekend or for an hour or whatever. That's not how this works, unfortunately. So, and they're both marvelous guys. But it depends on the level, the developmental level of the student, right? If you try and go too fast, you'll miss the whole thing. And unfortunately, that happens often. Okay, so does my first response, the first line of my response, make sense now?
It does. Okay,
good. So some materials you have to read repeatedly, some of them.
Right.
When a teacher asks you to read a book, as opposed to says, hey, here's a book to read in your spare time, or here's a book that might be contributory, if he says you need to read this book, there's probably a very good reason for that. And if you don't do that, it's going to cost you a lot more later, right? But it takes a while for people to learn that they're only cheating themselves. They're only wasting their own life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I don't mean to sound dogmatic or anything about it, but it's just a rule. It's like, when I was studying inorganic chemistry, and in organic chemistry especially, it was like painful and tedious and memorizing and all this, and what the hell are we doing this for? This has nothing to do with anything. And then you absolutely have to have it for biochemistry, right? The teacher understands that. The student doesn't, right? So, they teach it in an order. First, there's inorganic chemistry. Then there's organic chemistry. And then there's biochemistry. You don't get the biochemistry till you're, in med school or grad school or, an advanced course in college. And the inorganic chemistry is in pre-med. So I know it's out of fashion these days, but there's a reason for these things, and it's hard for me to stress it enough. But I don't, these days it's very unfashionable to do any work. It feels like so that's a problem.
That was all really helpful.
Okay, good.
The next segment was experience. So for experience, and to reiterate, the question was absorbing what is in materials and experiences. How do we do that best? For experience, you said on X, contemplation, integration with discursive understanding, integration with non-discursive understanding. Now it's knowledge with a capital K.
Okay, sounds like a lot. I mean, teaching on Twitter is very, very, very difficult, and but I do my best. So let's parse it out, please.
So for an experience, first you say contemplation.
Yeah, the experience, you'll just pass it by unless you contemplate it.
So this is.
You see a kid on the street.
Yeah.
And he's doubled over, presumably on fentanyl. That's an experience. Now what?
Contemplation.
You think about it. Like, hey, wait a minute, this kid, he's only like 17, and he's stuporous in the middle of the street, and he's probably going to die from this. And so then that requires contemplation, right? That's not an easy thing to see. That's an experience that you could walk right by, right? But you're not going to learn anything that way. And so then maybe you look up, fentanyl addiction on Wikipedia. And you find out how many kids died, 150,000, 100,000, whatever it is, right? It's probably underreported, but okay. So is that clear? Is that part clear?
Yeah. Although you could go quite far with contemplation. But yes.
Yeah, you could, and you might.
Okay, then integration with discursive understanding.
Well, that was the Wikipedia part.
Right. Discursive being the discursive faculty, which is, what do I call it?
The intellect.
The intellect.
The reasoning mind, the realm of words.
Right.
Yeah, for discursive, nothing beats words.
Right. So that's your mundane understanding, the intellectual understanding. You contemplate integration.
Well, it may or may not be mundane. I don't want to overdo it, but it's different than other understanding.
Right. Integration with non-discursive understanding.
Well, then, one leaving aside the statistics and the numbers and one's already contemplated the situation or whatever, one realizes, hey, that could be me. That could easily be me. That could be my brother. That could be my sister. That could be my father. And it is someone's, could be, an older person could be someone's father or someone's son. Someone's son, for example. Right? And then you feel that in your heart, what that's like to have your son sacrificed like that, for example. What's it like for a mother to see her precious child now on the streets, dirty, disheveled, and completely zonked out? With a bunch of other kids, and they're being supported in doing that. And then when the kid dies, her heart is broken, right? There's no words for that. Or right now, a cardinal just landed here. There's no words for the red of this bird. I mean, literally, I've played around with paints, and there's no word for this red. It's like stunning is the only thing I can think of. So okay, but I'm sorry, I was distracted. What? It's so beautiful. It's very destructive. It's so. Does that make sense?
That does. That's already illustrating a much more comprehensive picture of how one would approach an experience than I think is the common approach.
If there, right. But it's going to be different for different people. Now I'm a doctor, right? And I also care about kids, and so that's the kind of thing that would strike me. Someone else might be struck by something else. An old couple not being able to get from barely able to make it, barely able to drive to the doctor, right? And then barely able to walk from their car to the hospitals. Actually, they should have help. And then you think about why, as such a rich society, why are these people in this situation? I mean, that might be somebody else, somebody, who has an old parent or something, or somebody who knows people that are living alone, and sick. And what provisions have we made as a society for our elderly or for our young, right? So, and other people might see the situation in Israel, and see part of that.
What about
the Israel-Hamas thing, right?
Right. What about for the more, quote, run-of-the-mill, end quote, daily experiences that many people are more acquainted with? So they're going to get groceries, and it's just they're on their way to doing the same grocery run that they always do, or they're at their job, and it's this marketing gig, and it's what they're doing.
Let's say you go get your groceries. There's going to be humans there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't sense another human because you're so focused on getting your avocados or whatever, then you're dead, right? You're dead. And you got to pay attention. You got to be there. Yesterday, a magnificent raven he landed on my yard in such a way that I could see his outstretched wings and see the incredible power of these birds, right? And the elegance, and it's also kind of scary because these things are huge and muscular and powerful was the sense that I got, And then it stopped, and then it very gently turned over a leaf, just gently, very gently with its beak, picked up a leaf and turned it over. I'm still trying to digest that. So there's no shortage of this. You just have to be alive. There's people that you run into, all the time. A person's, trying to cross the street, and you don't have, you really wish they'd get out of your way because you need to get there, right? Well, you could think about that person. You could think about yourself. It's endless, but you have to. This is where the intent and you're either on this path or you're not. And if you're on it, then you're awake. Your eyes are open. You don't shut yourself off to it's infinite. It's everywhere. Everything is teaching at all times. That part I'm sure of. So the only question is, are you open to that? You could look at like a tree with no leaves. And first you just see a tree. Oh, there's a tree. But then you start to see the way its branches come out of its trunk. And then you start to contemplate the whole thing. And it gets richer and richer and richer, and it just keeps going. Every one of them is a finger pointing to the moon. The whole thing is alive, but you have to be alive, and we have to come out of this slumber of discursive. Oh, well, I know what that is. That's a tree. Oh, I know what that is. That's an oak. Oh, I really know what that is. That's a live oak, right? As opposed to some other kind of oak. Well, then you need to get beyond that. We've hypnotized ourselves into this belief that words are the world and that labels are the thing. And you must always look beyond not always, but you should frequently look beyond the label and look at the actual taste of an orange. Have you tasted a piece of fruit these days? So I don't know what else to say, but it's like being alive, being awake, not settling for just what everyone else tells you, is the reality, which is not only tragic but self-destructive, and not only that, but it's it creates so much suffering everywhere. I mean, this whole Instagram and TikTok cultures, they have no purpose in life. So the most available thing is consumerism and trying to look sexy, I guess, or trying to look rich, and so people are worshiping, not having a God. They worship money, or they worship themselves. And so this is a great tragedy for a civilization. It's the end of that civilization. And so that's happening all around. So all you have to do is look up.
I have a follow-up.
Okay.
Shaw talks sometimes about the inner qualities of a thing as opposed to its outer qualities. And I think Wittgenstein also, one of his propositions is to know a thing, you have to know its inner qualities, not its external qualities.
Right.
What are, and you can use an example, the inner qualities of a thing as opposed to its external qualities?
Well, I mean, that can be interpreted at many different levels, but the most simple one I've already described. So you look at a tree, and first you see its name, the one you learned in school, or the one you looked up on your iPhone or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then later you start to see a living creature. And you see a living creature. Not only is it a living creature, but it's reaching towards the sky. Not only is it reaching towards the sky, it's receiving energy from the sun. And then it's not only that, it's also a home for the birds and the squirrels, right? And then you realize it's part of a whole living system. Something like that. I don't want, and this is another thing, just because this is what I give as example doesn't mean that's going to be the right one for you. It could be totally different for someone who has other preoccupations, right? It doesn't, you could, Van Gogh looked at a pair of old shoes, right? Mm-hmm. And painted, something that I don't know what it's worth now, but it's worth a lot because he was painting the inner character of it. I mean, the real character of it, or he could. That's what all great artists do, right? And the rest of us just read it or look at it, or great poetry or whatever. But the inner and outer, so I can tell you what the opposite of inner character is. It's a 1 or 2 minute TikTok. That's the very opposite of the inner character of a thing. It's a tiny little piece that someone's put together because it's going to have an impact one way or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one must guard oneself against because we live in a culture that encourages the exact opposite. What kind of car does he drive? What's his net worth, right?
Right.
You know, what kind of clothes does he wear? It's pathological. It's literally pathological.
That reminds me of the Tao Te Ching passage that I was just reading early on in the text. When everyone knows that beauty is beauty, that is bad.
No, that's not what it says. It says it's not good, doesn't it?
The next one says, when everyone knows that good is good, that is not
It
good.
says, does it really say bad?
The Cleary one I have says bad.
Could you look at that real quick?
Yep.
Because I need to learn
Yeah, because I was just poring over this.
Oh, I see. It's in juxtaposition to the good and bad. Okay, but yeah. So, all right. In other translations, that's not the way it's phrased.
Mm-hmm.
When everyone knows good is good, that is not good. That is not good.
Here it is specifically. It's called Everyone Knows. When everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. When everyone knows good is good, this is not good.
Okay, so that's very different. When beauty, that's bad. But good and good, that's different. It's not good. He didn't say bad. He said not good.
No, yeah, what I quoted was, when everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad.
Oh, I thought you were referring to, all right, good and not good.
No.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I misheard you is what happened. Boy, you alarmed me with that because I misheard you.
Well, that's good for me to think about the extreme difference in your mind between those two things.
Well, I don't know about extreme difference, but there is a difference.
Mm-hmm. Here, yeah, again, initially reading it, I think bad and not good are the same thing. Rereading it, well, I'll do that on my own time.
Right, you can do that for a lifetime, right?
Right.
You can, and you should, and you will if you become acquainted with a text, because very few texts provide so much, power per square inch.
Yeah.